Hello everyone, welcome to my corner of the world, and today I'm going to share another embossing folder technique, and this time we're going to use some ink and a brayer, and I'm going to show basically two techniques. One I prefer over the other, but that's what we're going to do. So I have my embossing folder, and this is quite a busy one, I'm going to use it. I'm going to use it anyway. And the first thing I'm going to do is to run some card through while it's still clean. So I've got just a quarter sheet of either A4 or letter size. It doesn't matter which. And for this one, I know, because I just tested it out, I know I need 2 clear plates with my embossing machine. So you just got to check out each of your embossing folders just to see what you need to use. Most embossing folders will work with most machines, not all of them obviously, but most will. So you just need to work with it to make it happen. So there's my one piece. I'm going to do another one piece. I'm going to do, I think this piece of card is slightly smaller. Right, what did I do? There it is. So we're going to do a couple, and then I'm going to pop those to one side for a few minutes. I just wanted to do those for the second technique before, and then I don't have to clean up my machine between times. So there we are. So this tells me that this is the emboss side, which means it's going to push the cardstock up inside the shapes, and this is the deboss side, which is going to push the cardstock down between the shapes. Right, so there's that bit. So the first thing we're going to do now is I'm going to put ink on the embossed side. Okay, and I've got my brayer. Now, if you don't have a brayer, you can just simply swipe your ink across like that. And I'm just using the edge, the front edge, okay. Oh, but this isn't working. Maybe I ought to do it with that side. That's better. You can do it like that, and you need to perhaps work a couple of ways through, or you can take your brayer and you can just load it up with some ink, and then you can just roll it on like this and just work on a piece of paper so you don't get it on your work surface. So I'm just gently rolling just to make sure I've got a good coverage. We're going to set that aside for a few moments, and then again, taking a piece of card, I'm going to put it on the clean side and just flip this over like that, without hopefully getting too much in the way of ink on me. Let's get rid of that, otherwise it will go everywhere. Then we're going to bring our embossing machine back in like that, pop it, and just run it through like that. Let's see what we've got. So this will give you a lovely front piece. like that. Okay, and so what we've actually got is we've got the ink on the sort of the piece of card that's going down. Now, this doesn't necessarily give you a total coverage. It's sort of quite sort of, I guess, shabby chic-ish looking, but it's very attractive and would make a brilliant card front. So what I'm going to share with you now is an alternate way of doing it. But before we do that, all I'm going to quickly do is you can either run your embossing folder under a running tap, or just get a little water, spray, some kitchen paper towel, and you can just clean that off and just set it aside to dry a bit, because water's going to get into those little dibbly bits, and you don't want that to get on your on your paper. So that's that method, and we'll create a card momentarily, but I just wanted you to see the two methods that we've got. Now the other method, so we've got this one here. Now the other method is to emboss your card first, and then to get your ink. And again, you can swipe that over the top, and I did a video on that the other day, and I called it smooshing. But with this, and I'm not going to press ever so hard, start off the paper and roll it like that. And the sticky up bits, the emboss bits, are going to pick up the ink. And so this is looking at the bits that are white here, and you can see that it's a lot, let's put it the same way up. Yeah, it's a lot more defined. And then if you flip it over and do the same, just gently roll the ink. Now you will need to go over it a couple of times, because this is fresh ink and the roller's getting a bit dry up here. So, and when you use your roller, don't just go back and forth like that, because you're just going to get ink on one little part. Just roll it a few times around on itself and then put it across. Now this has to be one of my most favorite color inks. It's called Lost Lagoon, and I just love it. As you can see, it is a bit on the dark side at the moment because of the ink intensity, but as it dries, it will lighten up and become a little bit more sort of greeny, lighter greeny color rather than the dark. So those are the two methods. So what we're going to do with the with what we've created, I'm just going to close this up so I don't get a ink everywhere. So I got a card base, and this is just half a sheet. I think this is half a sheet of A4. And so I've just scored it down the middle. You can use a half a sheet of letter size and it'll work just the same. So we can put this piece on. This is already, we've got a little bit of ink on the flat bit, but that doesn't matter. This is already the right sort of size that I was looking to go for. But I thought maybe this would look a bit more dramatic. And this is a bit bigger, so let's go ahead and trim this down, and then we can see what I must admit, I do like the more dramatic. So this needs to be finished at 4. So we're going to trim this bit off at the side and bring it down, hopefully, to about 4. If it needs to be a bit smaller, we will, but I think we're good on there. And then it needs to be 5 1/4, I think. Oh no, let's check, because I'm using A4, aren't I, rather than letter size. I'm still getting used to working with letter size card. So that's 5 1/2. So I've actually cut this down to sort of an A4 size. That's fine. That's brilliant. Okay. So we're going to end up, we need 5 1/4. So we'll take a little smidgen off that end, and then we'll take some off of this there. So we have a choice. I can make 2 cards now, can't I? If I had another base, I could make 2 cards. This one is okay, but it doesn't do it for me like this. I love these clean lines, and so I would prefer to use this rather than that. But I think that if we were to cut this down and have a little look at it, so this needs to be 4. So we'll take 1/8 off of this side. Perhaps it'll look better when I've trimmed it up a bit. At the moment, it's not floating my boat. So by 5 1/4. So this is actually 5 1/2. So if we do 1/8 off of the top and there. So that isn't so bad. I'm not so happy about this bit, but I have a new punch. Look. Love it. I'm a sucker for punches. Now let me show you another little technique that I do. If I want to see if this punch is going to work for the design, we're just going to cut a piece out of some scratch paper, and then I'm going to see, okay, well, if I put that there, do I like that better? Okay, if I put this here, do I like that? If I pop this, because I've got 3 opportunities. This one I could probably pop maybe in the middle. Again, this one could pop in the middle maybe. So a lot of that design is coming through. And this one I might put to the side a little to just sort of cover the little bit I'm not quite so happy with. Although I think I've got that upside down. So I could put that up there, couldn't I? That'd work. All right, so I'm just going to make one, and then what I might do is make the other 2 up and pop them, photographs of them on my blog, and you can find that by looking just below this video in the description box, and there'll be a link exactly to this particular post. Right, so I'm gonna do that one later. I think I'm trying to get all the little bits out the way. I'm going to go for this one. I love this the richness of that, and I perhaps put one of those down there. Right, so the cardstock I have here is actually a pale blue. It's called Pool Party, and this is, the ink is Lost Lagoon, but I think they go quite nicely together. And to bring it more into being, I've got some nice Pool Party ribbon. So we're going to bring this in. I do love to use ribbon on my cards. It just adds a level of luxuriousness. I think that's a word. but I don't necessarily want to wind it all the way around, because then it adds bulk and it wastes some ribbon. And if you send cards internationally, as I still do, it can make them too heavy. So we've got that like that. So we're going to use some double-sided sticky pads just to raise it up. So give it a bit more presence. How are we doing for time? 15 minutes. That's not bad when you think that we've done a technique and some trimming. Now, sometimes when you're doing this much embossing, it can make the card a little bit soft, because basically what you've done is you've bent the fibres around. So I'm putting a few extra sticky pads on just to give it a bit more support is what I'm doing. And I'm trying not to put the backs on the floor. I think I said in a previous video, in my corner in the States, I had a wooden floor, and if I dropped stuff on the floor, it was so easy to pick it up. Here I've got carpet, and if I drop stuff on the floor, it is so difficult to pick it up again. So I'm getting some cards. Get a bit of white cardstock for my greeting. Let's see. I want to use something that is not gonna, oh, that might work. Let's see, we've got that shape, that'll work beautifully. And so we're gonna do a bit of stamping. Now I'm going to use this stamp set, which coordinates with my punch. And it's got some nice frames, and it's got some nice greetings. And so this is the frame, and it's the first time I've used it, so I'm not quite sure, oh nice, how it would turn out. So we're going to do that. That's nice. And then I've got a happy birthday. Because at the end of the day, you know, we send far more birthday cards than any other, I'm sure. Perhaps thank you cards come second. And because it comes from the same stamp set, it's all designed to fit in together. So I'm just going to see if I can centre that up without getting my head in. That's not bad. Not bad. And punch. Like that. And another little tip is that ribbon is kind of flapping a little bit in the middle, so I am just going to pop a glue dot underneath just to secure it. And then we're going to put some sticky pads so that they go top and bottom, so it sort of straddles the ribbon and holds it in place but doesn't add to the bulk. And then I've just got some to think about the inside. And I love doing this. It's what I call a faux knot. And it looks like you've tied the ribbon all the way around and got it nice and tight. And tied a knot. And we all know it can be very difficult to try and tie it round the card and end up with a nice tight ribbon at the front. But this, nobody would ever know it finishes at the back. And what have we got? I got a few pearls that we could just add on. I think pearls, maybe, there it is. There's my little tool with a putty on the end. I always give it a little squeeze to bring it all up together. And if we put it on the inky side, they'll show up a bit better than if we put them on white like that. And then one other thing, I wanted to do something inside. This is my To You Love from Me, and I've got a spare piece that I experimented on, so we can trim a little piece here. So I'm going to use 5/8. I like 5/8. I like 3/8 as well. They're my two favourite measurements for strips. Nice little bit of glue. Just line that up. And I can just trim that tiny piece off if I can find my scissors. Like that. And then we'll just add this piece in. And I think then we're done. So I will work on the other examples, and I will add those to my blog, just to sort of see how they compare there. Okay, let's clear the backlog here. Get my pin in. Let's get all this mess out of the way. So there we have another embossing folder technique, where it's actually the main part of the card like they have been before. And there are a couple of other ways of producing them. Two ways of doing them. I think you'll agree that it looks a bit William Morrissey to me, but that is a way that you can create your cards. Well, if you've enjoyed this one, perhaps you'll just go ahead, give me a thumbs up. I'd certainly like to thank you so much for choosing to spend some time with me today. Don't forget the link to the blog below for information and other pictures. And I will look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye for now.